Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about something that has become a heated topic, especially among young people, and honestly I understand why. We're going to talk about labels. By labels, I am referring to those identity labels such as, for example, a extrovert, bisexual, a Christian, vegan, perfectionist, and so on. Lately, I've heard a lot of people say that labels are bad, that they are restrictive and they put people in boxes. And while I agree that there is some truth to that, I think the full story is not that simple. I actually believe that labels can also be powerful and helpful if we understand them properly and apply them carefully. So today, let's dive into the good and the bad of identity labels. First, why do labels even exist? Well, labels are one of the most basic human inventions. It's our way of trying to organize this chaotic world we live in. Think about it, our brains are constantly categorizing things without us even realizing it. It's just how we make sense of this complicated and messy reality we have to face every day. Imagine if we couldn't label anything like colors, emotions, relationships, personalities, etc. Everything would be so chaotic and overwhelming. So, in that sense, labels serve a very important psychological function, and it's just part of being human. When I, for example, call myself an introvert, it's not because I'm trying to limit myself to what introverts are stereotypically like. It's because it gives me a framework to understand my own needs. Like, oh, that's why I feel so drained after a social event. I didn't do anything wrong. It is my makeup. It's because I'm an introvert. So at social events, my energy gets drained and I need to spend some time alone to recharge that energy. As my example with the introvert label just demonstrated, labels beyond just organizing the world help us understand ourselves. I mean, think about when you first learned about a certain concept or identity label that resonated with you. It's this amazing feeling of, oh, that explains so much. That's why I felt like that. It's very comforting and validating, especially when you don't really fit the mainstream narrative of what's normal. Labels can make you feel seen, make you feel that you are not abnormal. When I discovered certain labels for myself, I wasn't putting myself in a box or a cage. It was more like finding where I belong and finding a explanation for my experiences to make more sense of it. Identity labels can provide you a foundation of who you are, and then you can grow on this foundation. Now, with that being said, it is true that there's also a danger around identity labels. I totally get where people are coming from when they talk about labels being restrictive. The problem really comes in when labels stop being a description and starts becoming a definition. For example, instead of saying, I have perfectionistic tendencies, you start saying, I am a perfectionist and that's all I am. You identify too strongly with the label. The label becomes your identity, your whole identity. It is sometimes very subtle in just the specific use of language, but it can have a very powerful effect on you. Also, on a larger scale, society and then even ourselves can pressure us to perform to specific labels, like we are supposed to live up to them and nothing more. Like we are our labels and that's just it. For example, the label of a parent or of a doctor or of a wife or husband. So you just think that society can pressure you to dedicate a lot of your time and energy to live up to the expectations of this specific role, like you are nothing more than a mother or a husband or a doctor or a teacher. There's also some labels that has a lot of stereotypical ideologies connected to them, or that is just straight up misunderstood. For example, people might be like, oh, you say you're an introvert, you must hate being around people. Or people could say, oh, you say you're bisexual, you must be hypersexual then. And that is just simply not the truth for those labels, or at least not for everyone with those labels, because even people with the same labels could be very different, because people are very complex, very messy, and we change a lot over time. So in that sense, labels can be dangerous. However, something I really want you to pay attention to, those 3 points that I mentioned, those three dangers surrounding labels, they all had something to do with how people or how we ourselves apply the labels. The identity labels themselves are not evil or bad or want to hurt you. They are simply tools, and it just depends on how they are used, how they are applied. So the key takeaway is that labels are, they are just tools. They are not meant to be bad. They are not meant to be prisons or these boxes that you are put in. They can help you describe your experience and understand your experience better. They act as a lens that you can view yourself through and view the world through. And it's just one part of the picture, not the whole painting. You are not your label. And that's something very important that you must never forget. You are a person who experiences perfectionism. You are not just a perfectionist. You are a person who leans toward being introverted. You are not just introvert and that's all. And yes, people might still continue to misuse labels and use them to hurt others, but we ourselves could start using labels in a more healthier way by remembering that they are not evil by nature. It is about how we apply them. And it's very important to remember that they are only a description of us and not the definition. They are not who we are. We are not our labels. And honestly, another important thing that we often forget is that a lot of traits, they appear on a spectrum, on a continuum. For example, the easiest example is introversion and extroversion. It is not simply black and white. You're either introvert or extrovert, and that's just how it is. It's actually this long continuum. And actually, most people fall in the middle as ambiverts. And there's only a few people who really is on the far end of the spectrum as extroverts, and then the other far end of the spectrum is introverts. The same goes for gender and sexuality and other traits such as anxiety or optimism. There's a lot of fluidity depending on the situation, the environment, or even your mood on the day. When we think about labels, we need to remember that they are just approximate signposts. They are not strict boundaries that we could never ever cross. Because people change a lot over time, and naturally, labels will change too. Not necessarily in the sense that the label will become a whole new label, but just the intensity of that label might change. Another important reason why identity labels matter is because they help us find a community. And this is something I think a lot of critics of labels overlook. When someone labels themselves like they are asexual or they are vegan or they are Christian, they become part of a specific culture group. It can bring them a sense of belonging. It's a way of saying, I'm not alone. I stand with these people who are similar to me in a way. It is important for us humans to find people who have walked a similar path and to connect with them so we are not lonely. The sense of belonging is one of the most fundamental needs of humans. We need to feel connected to others, especially those who are similar to us. Labels can give us a starting point for finding these very important connections. To say, here's something real about me. Does anyone else get it? Do you have it too? And when you find the people who do get you, that is priceless. And it's one of the best ways to fight against social isolation and loneliness, which has become ever more prevalent these days. There's one more aspect of labels that deserve to be mentioned, and that is the context that the label appears in. We need to be very careful because the context can play such an important role and in fact has been overlooked in a lot of psychological research. We've always focused on the individual experience and we've overlooked the bigger context. How you act at your family dinner table versus how you act at school or work or when you're hanging out with your friends are all very different. And you are not fake for adapting to different contexts. You are simply human. So it's okay to hold your labels lightly. It's okay for certain labels to be a bit more stronger in certain contexts and a bit more weaker in other contexts. Because in certain contexts, certain labels of you are more important, maybe to others or to yourself. And that is okay. Labels are just something that you should in general not hold on too tight. Because like I said, it's a description of you and not your definition. And also, it is heavily influenced by the context and just where you are in life at that moment. So that means that you can grow out of your labels because people change a lot over time. So some labels might fade away completely and be replaced by new labels. And that is okay. It is completely normal to go through big changes as time goes by. That is actually a very normal human experience. And it doesn't mean that that previous label was wrong. It was right for you at that time. What is wrong is holding on to a label that isn't right for you anymore, when there's maybe another label that is more suitable for you and where you are right now in life. Identity in general is not one fixed thing. It is a very complex and dynamic story that you keep telling and retelling as time goes by. But as the story of your identity plays out, having certain identity labels can help you feel less overwhelmed and feel more in control of who you are and the way you want to act. So to wrap this up, are labels good or bad? The answer, like most things in life, is it depends. It depends on the context, it depends on the individual. It depends on where the person is in their life and what their life goals are. It depends on what label we're talking about. Identity labels are far too complex to just be good or bad. Labels can be powerful, they can be affirming and freeing, but they can also limit you if you choose to let them harden as walls around you. My advice? Use labels as maps, not as boxes or prisons that you lock yourself into. Use them as tools to understand yourself and to connect with others. But always remember that you are more than any label. You are allowed to grow, to change, and to redefine yourself as many times as you need to. I hope that I gave you a little bit more clarity and peace around the idea of labels. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a comment below and tell me what labels have helped you better understand yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, take care of yourself and keep striving to be the best version of you.